Hi everyone. I'm gonna pull up my volume real quick. Thank you all who are joining on this very intimate live video. I was going from a place of like, is it appropriate to share this? Is it the right platform, the right time? And I kept getting the edgy yes, it is. And so in this video, I'm going to vulnerably share some of my darkest moments of my life with the intention, hope, that it can inspire someone to find their healing solution around depression. First of all, just gonna put, what is it called? Can't even think of the word. My English, I haven't practiced a lot of English, so I forget words. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm not a professional in treating depression. This is purely me sharing my story openly. And so yeah, I'm not a professional. I don't treat depression, but I am gonna share my journey with you. So now that that's out of the way, the other thing that I find around depression so key to healing is really allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and being seen. Like for instance, right now, one of the things that I was like contemplating or I was concerned about was like, oh great, I'm gonna do a depression suicidal video with a big thing on my nose. I'm like, actually it's perfect that my nose is healing from this dog bite, and that's part of actually what has helped my own healing journey. I'm gonna actually close the window because there's like some construction going on. 1 second. So number one thing that has helped me with depression was allowing myself to openly, vulnerably share with whoever that was around that I felt the yes with, to share what was going on. The first moments I recall myself being really down was when I was 15 years old, and but I had so much going on that it kept me away from like really dealing with it, with really acknowledging that there was something within me that just felt really off. So I ended up coping with this pain. I actually thank Goddess to running, because that was like a healthy way that I was coping with this uncomfortable feeling inside of me that was just depressed. And it got to a really bad place about 2 years ago. And what made it really possible for me to, like, I really feel the curtains blowing, to really move from a place of observing my depression to not being in the depression and the suicidal thoughts, because they got to that extreme place, was releasing the taboo around depression. Depression is seen as something weak, something negative, and I actually think it's quite the opposite. I think depression is a powerful time for people. It's a powerful time to get to know the depths of who you are, why you're here, and actually who's gonna have your back during those times. I feel that and it's not because you're weak. I was a nationally ranked long distance runner. That's endurance and mind you know. It wasn't a weakness thing. When I started to dive deeper into what was the root cause, the source of my depression, and it was like a good 6 months of like pretty not consistent, but I did have suicidal thoughts, and it was it never got to the point of wanting to do anything about it, because I just knew that wasn't the answer. But I did allow myself to go to those places of like, really, if you were to take your life away now, like, let's just imagine, how would that make you feel? Like, it might feel good temporarily that you're not feeling this thing, but how would it really feel? Like, how would it feel with your family, your parents? And I allowed myself to visit those places within me of really inquiring authentically, fully, vulnerably, openly. And I came to the realization that I still had work to do, that it wasn't fair to leave my parents like that, my family like that. Even though, believe me, there was a strong desire to just not want to deal with this anymore. So I allowed myself to go to those places of what it would feel like. And I came out to realizing that it just wasn't responsible. It wasn't time. It wasn't right. So because I was aware that it wasn't the time, and it wasn't just wasn't it, I had to dive deeper and figure out what was going on. It turns out that it actually was something much more simpler than I thought. Not necessarily easy, but the root cause of most of, I would say, the significant key player role of depression, for me at least, was like there was a health imbalance in me. And so most of the time, because there's so much taboo around depression, and because there's not a lot of like healthy, safe spaces for people to openly just talk about it, or to heal, or to process, or to whatever, in a natural way, in a way that necessarily doesn't put you on pills and in the hands of someone else's medication. Sorry, I got distracted by a comment. Let me see, hold on. Can someone remind me what I was saying? So let me retrace my thoughts 1 second. That's the other thing about depression, and it's a very deep, shadowy, scary place to ground yourself, is what I was seeing too. That it really allows you to face what is really going on. And so one of the root causes for me was actually my health. I was taking this like depression thing like so personal, like, oh, I'm so weak, I'm not on my purpose, I'm not doing this, or God, I should be here, or like all of a sudden it became this like whole just this downward spiral of things. That's when you know it's time to basically ask your question, how can I love and honor myself right now? Stop everything. If you can, how can I love and honor myself right now? Okay, I'm gonna make chocolate. Okay, great. Okay, art is another way that actually helps me balance myself. Like, art can look different for everyone. For me, it's just like, you know, doing my hair in funky ways and like just allowing myself. It's working with the unknown. It's working and giving it a home, giving it a place, versus processing, internalizing, creating disease and pain in you. So one of the things I learned was like I actually had some imbalances in my health. And that looked like candida, that looked like parasites. I had like 2 parasites. I had yeast. I had all of these like health issues which were contributing to my depression. And so as I was able to kind of pull away from the taboo and looking at depression as a negative thing, or as like a weakness thing, because I know it's not that. I was able to actually do some inner healing around the core function, the core source of this imbalance that I was experiencing. So I went on this really deep journey for like a good solid, I would say, year. And I'm forever, ever grateful for the beloved that I had at the time, who was there with me like a warrior through the thickest part of my depression. It was in the middle also of my Saturn return. So of course my body was like putting me in a place where like, you need to face these health issues, because I was dealing with my health imbalances from this like kind of like old school 60s style of old long distance training, like go home, like go all out, or like go home, whatever it's called, go big or go home. So for me, my whole mentality and discipline and success as an athlete, as a long distance runner, was all about pushing and pushing and doing more, showing more, like you're not weak, like constantly having to prove. So when I had like, basically, I had like 2 years of headaches. I had all these, when I was drinking water, I get all like nauseous. It was all these like health issues that were like coming to the surface, and they were then manifesting into like really intense depression, suicidal thoughts. And so again, once I was able to unveil that depression is just it's just a time to go deep, a time to ground into who you are, ground into the power of healing in general and what it can do for yourself and in communities. I discovered that I had these imbalances, and then after a solid year of seeing different kind of doctors, I'd never gotten into any kind of like antidepressant. It just didn't resonate with me. I discovered that I had some brain imbalances, and I have this genetic mutation which is called MTHFR. Some doctors know it as motherfucker, and so MTHFR. And so it turns out that I only produce 40% of neurotransmitters, and neurotransmitters help balance your mood. And so I genetically actually don't even have, by default, an ability to, my mood is constantly compromised. It can be easily triggered because I'm in a toxic environment, not just like energetically toxic. I mean, though that affects me a lot, but like even if there's smoke, there's chemicals in a detergent, like it just throws me off completely. So where I'm going with this, really allowing myself to see that there was something internally deep within myself that was off, and being vulnerable with everyone around me. Like, this is what I'm going through. Yes, I've been dealing with this since I was 15 years old, but I have found ways to process and to heal and to move through it. And so that has led me to coming back to a really happy and healthy place within my body, and that has contributed to seeing depression as like a beautiful gift, and seeing depression as something that is a priority to heal, to not have to hide, behind it, to not hide behind the illusion that you're weak, that it's that whatever taboos are associated with it nowadays. But it's really a time to prioritize around it. So I'm just going to take a moment to look at the comments and see if there's anything else that, if anyone has any comments or questions that I'd like to check into that. And thank you all for joining the video. I think, one of the biggest inspirations for the video, as some of you know, is like the recent death of Pslam Isadora, and it just hurts to know that a sister on the tantric path, had to go there, and I felt like I had to do this video, even though it's like I openly share about this stuff with my personal friends and everything like that. But I felt like how many people out there could use how many people, like I just couldn't help to share that, like when we release our taboos around depression, a whole world opens up. A whole world opens up around our purpose and our appreciation for the healing that is available around us. Like I was able to appreciate medical science that was able to because of some saliva swapping test and blood work, whatever I did, was able to tell me that I was deficient in all these different like these brain chemicals. So what I actually ended up doing after I discovered I had this deficiency, I was taking GABA for 6 months, and it was like so amazing to take GABA for 6 months straight. Like it's a natural supplement, and I really felt for the first time, I was like, life is so easy. Oh my God, like to just feel that kind of like to feel like my body was like balanced, felt so amazing to like feel that finally within myself. Because prior to knowing I had these deficiencies, and prior to knowing I had parasites, and prior to doing something actively around the parasites, the candida, the MTHFR, I was constantly having to like work out. I constantly had to do all these like hardcore doing masculine, constantly had to do all of these things in order to just feel like normal. And so after having the professional guidance of a naturopath, I was able to kind of like clear all these like health issues, which again inevitably contributes to the health of your mind. The gut is so connected with the brain. It's like the body is connected. You can't separate that. And so after I did my solid 6 months of GABA, I little by little started to pull away from that, because I know for one, my GABA shipment was like 3 weeks late or a month late. I don't know. So when I knew that I wasn't getting the shipment, it was the time for me to inquire, like, okay, well, what can I do to give myself that kind of like extra like balanced support? What can I do now? So it did come back to me doing something, but that doing no longer came from a place of like survival, like I like depended, my identity depended on it, but rather it's like supplemental. Like I'm doing these things because they're nourishing me, rather than like I have to do these things or else I'm gonna freaking die, or I'm gonna feel awful, I'm gonna do blah 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 blah. So for anyone who's going through those dark places, my advice is to allow yourself to be seen, to be vulnerable with those you trust. And okay, I wouldn't say advice. I don't want to say advice. Let's just take that back, because once again, I'm not a depression expert, but just I'm sharing what I did. I truly release the taboo. I think that's the number one thing. The number one thing, and if there's one thing you can walk away from this, is releasing the taboo. All the taboos negative taboos, unhealthy taboos associated with depression. It's a real thing, and it's to me, depression is sacred. Depression is there for a reason, and you can also move through it. You can work through it. Nowadays, the moment I feel down and low and sad, I really just go back to asking myself, how can I love and honor myself? That has been helping me lately, and I haven't had any like suicidal thoughts basically ever since I took care of my health. So the beauty about depression, and the scary part about depression, is that you're constantly working with the unknown territory of like, what is this? What's going on? My back hurts, my this hurts, or my heart, you know. And it's a constant journey, and it seems like it's never gonna end. But if you're disciplined and you have if you're disciplined and you're open about it, like, you will find the light. You will find the answer to your healing. And my depression also makes sense as to why I am who I am as well with my work. Like, for instance, like some of the things that like really balance and nourish me is actually human touch, and not just any touch. It has to be a very conscious, refined touch, and that is actually what helps balance my brain too, with all the oxytocins and everything like that. And so everything has a purpose. All health issues serve a purpose, and you know, the best thing is to unveil, remove the veil, remove the illusions that there's anything wrong with you and it. And it's your divine homework to understand, solve, heal, transform, share. I know I said I was going to read the comments, but I haven't read them yet, so I'm just going to check them out, see if there's anything juicy and yummy. And thank you everyone who's been on this talk. Thank you for being you. I love you. And this topic, I support your vulnerable expression. Thank you so much, Chelsea. Meow meow. Yeah. I want to also review my notes. Thank you so much, John Park. Around I agree, Candice. It's a personal journey through depression for sure. From a lower consciousness. So when people, like John Park, when you say all sickness and health-related issues stem from a lowered consciousness, even that, I would say, like, that would put immediately someone to like thinking lower, higher, like comparison. Even though I do agree that our sicknesses and health come from places within ourselves, or things around us that aren't of the highest quality, more refined consciousness. I think it's important to also be very sensitive to the words that you use around someone who has depression. You know, to be really clear that, because a depressed person is already struggling, and so to say lower, higher vibrations, lower, higher consciousness, it immediately makes it even more like it's almost like a downer. A downer for people. So I would just also say to use our words as gently and kind as possible. It's a tender heart. Depression is a tender place, and so we need to respect that and hold that healing with as much love as possible. Cool, Marshall Clark. I love to hear about your MTHFR tips. For the most part, I'm pretty good in handling my MTHFR. I had an amazing naturopath who also has MTHFR. I have both. I got it from both of my parents. But yeah, I'd love to just nerd out, see what you have to say. What's one big taboo of depression you think is the hardest to challenge? I think the biggest thing, the thing that sticks to me is, like, you know, that people associate our culture, society, whatever, associates depression as like a form of weakness. That's my biggest thing, because to me it's not, it's a state of being. And I think, if anything, as a society, we haven't had the tools to the modern tools to support people through moving through the state of being fully and successfully, wholly and completely. Yeah. So I think that's, my phone just dropped. So I think that's the main thing, is like seeing it that it's not a weakness. It's a state of being, and there's wisdom in that. Beautiful point. Totally agree. I'd love to know what point is that, Todd. Yeah. Yes, releasing. So. Okay, beautiful. I'm just seeing if there's any. Let me see if there's anything else. Anish, do you like to know the solution to courage for initial depression to fight back? Do you know the solution? The solution. I think the thing about depression is, like, it doesn't just happen overnight. I think it's something like a sequence of events that happened, and you on some level feel helpless or unsupported to deal with it properly, and then because you're caught up in the doing of life, that it takes you more and more away through the ease and grace of dealing with something that maybe could have been more simpler, but because we didn't have the time or the consciousness or the support to deal with it then and there, then it becomes this more even bigger thing. So I think the main thing is just really just nailing in the butt from the beginning, just like acknowledging what's hurting. And if you know you're a person that visits these places within yourself frequently, totally work with the question, how can I love and honor myself now? And start seeing everything as an opportunity to be on that path of fighting the depression. I don't like the word fighting, and I don't like the word courage to your depression. I don't know, but maybe it does help some people. You do have to have courage. I mean, but I just, in general, you have to have courage to just live every day, to live consciously. I think there's another thing that really has helped me a lot that I haven't shared in this whole video is my work. Coming back to my work, coming back to why I'm truly here has been huge. Every time I feel a little off, a little down, or something like that, and anytime I've been able to focus my energy where it's A, well received, and B, where I know is going to make a difference, then I can sit back later and be content that I actually chose what was best for myself. So I think it's sure there's some courage involved, but it's just consciously choosing just the absolute best for yourself, moment by moment, even if it's baby steps, even if it's well, I can't even brush your teeth, man, take a shower, do those baby steps. They count. They really, really do. They add up in the end. Let me see. I want to come to a retreat. I'm living in somewhere and I'm not in my elements like I was in Sedona and Kelly. I miss my goddess friends. I feel like everyone here is 10 years behind the West Coast. It's very racist and judgmental here. I feel you, girl. I live in Mexico, and it's straight up Mexico. I don't live in the cool hip town quite yet. I live in a machismo, it's a conservative place. It's totally magical as well. It's really special in many ways, but If you find yourself being in an environment that's not nourishing and nurturing to your evolution, I mean, there's two things you can do. You can see it as like, this is the medicine I need for my own evolution right here and now. Give yourself a deadline to know, like, okay, this is a realistic time for me to leave or find a next plan. I think it's always important to not make anything wrong and to see, like, okay, what is the medicine here for me? What is my task here to do? What can I do that's going to inspire me right now? How can I love myself here and now? Okay, and now? Okay, great, and now? And that's just the journey. That's the journey. So so this may be the right time for you to inquire why your purpose is there, or find a solution that is realistic and graceful and gentle to your soul. The point was depression being important, a gift. Once we're able to work through it, yes, depression is totally a gift. And I really feel once we release those taboos, like, there's some sweet, sweet medicine, gems and jewels there. Yes, I understand, Shao. I was hesitant to use the phrase lower consciousness. I was not sure if I was being sensitive enough on this matter. Now I understand. Yeah, thank you so much for understanding. I mean, I totally understand what actually, I don't want to say I totally understand, but I feel I understand what you're trying to communicate. It's just important to just like see depression as like a baby that's like a rebirth. Like there's this precious little adult or teenager or whoever, or maybe, you know, it's a baby right now and it's going through a rebirth. It's like it's going through a cocoon. It's like, you don't tell a little baby like, yo, or a little like caterpillar in its cocoon, like, hey, you're weak, why aren't you hatching yet? Why aren't you coming out of your shell? What? You know, instead we can be that just like nurturing, gentle, loving container that is supporting the journey and the process that the individual needs to go through. So another question, what if depression is resulted from somebody who can't seem to find a purpose with themselves? What tips could you give for people in that case? Find your purpose. Find it. The thing is, you have to be actively doing something. You can't just like expect you can't expect the world to present yourself your purpose. You actually have to take those baby quantum steps, whether it looks like initially at first brushing your teeth, getting in the shower, signing up for that workshop that spoke to you. Depression, I feel, has a lot to do with suppressing our feminine energy. Suppressing that feminine energy can look like so many things, but it can be like you ignoring it, neglecting it, not nurturing it, not the feminine energy is our spontaneous innocence that wants to be seen, that wants to express herself. And so if you know you're feeling down about you not being on purpose, align yourself. What would it look like to be in purpose? What would it feel like? What kind of trainings, what kind of education, what kind of community do I need to be around? What can I do now to get myself out of that and put myself back on track? So I would say that, Todd, for me, I really had to search the deepest, darkest spaces of my soul to appreciate such blinding light on the opposite end of the spectrum. My depression was so real for so long, so deep, and it built strength and stamina for me to keep my face to the light. Yes, as much as it hurt and I was crippling when I was in the midst of it, I am grateful for oh, it's blocking, but it's blocking the full comment. But yes, I feel very similar. Like, I went to some really dark places, and I actually, like, even though I was depressed for 15 years. I was like off and on, you know, like long distance running was like so totally amazing for me. It just like kept me in good spirits, and like I just was in shape, and like was around teammates, and you know, I was always like busy. I was always around things. So it was an off and on thing for 15 years. But when it got to a serious place, you know, looking back, I appreciate going there and coming out of that with so much wisdom and to share around the body, around genetics, I mean, around herbalism, around hormone balancing, about brain chemistry, like all sorts of things that I would have probably just never been curious enough to stumble across on my own. So yeah, transformational experience. Anyone going through this should be honored and nurtured by others, not looked down upon. Totally agree. I think if you have someone in your life that has expressed depression, that is going through depression, hold that at the very least, hold that neutral space for them. You know, if you're not able to authentically be healing to that person because of your opinions around depression or your inability to hold space, at the very least be in a neutral space. That's also powerful. I just read Carly's message. Yes, dancing was so healthy for me considering the flexible schedule. Now I'm working 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm so depressed with such structure. Thank you for your inspiration and beautiful energy. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's important to grieve, you know, when we go from a transition to the next, whether it's a lifestyle transition of a work or a new career or anything. It's okay to, it's normal to feel like a grieving period. There's parts of us that need that, you know, to really let go and embrace the new. So enjoy the sadness, enjoy the parts of you that you seem to not be able to control, and really come back to the question, how can I love and honor myself? Yeah. So it doesn't look like there's any more questions here. Thank you so much for everyone who joined on the live chat today. I really felt called to share some things because I feel like there's just so much taboo around this like dark, unknown, mystical time that a person and a soul has to go through in order to rebirth, in order to go to their next phase of evolution. And if we can at the very least hold a neutral space for people, we're doing well. The last thing a person that needs from depression is to make them feel or to experience that they are weak for going through this time in their life. So thank you all again for sharing and commenting, and I am sending you all love and blessings during this Venus retrograde. There's going to be other few retrogrades going on in a few weeks with other planets, so just be on the lookout for that and keep coming back to the question, how can I love and honor myself again? Thank you. Have a great weekend.